Limiting reactants. The amount of a product made in a reaction is determined by how much reactant is present. In a reaction, one of the reactants can be used up before the other reactant or reactants. This one that is used up is called the limiting reactant. Let's look at an analogy. If we're making cheese sandwiches and each sandwich has 1 slice of cheese and 2 slices of bread, we start with 10 slices of bread and 10 slices of cheese, we can only make 5 sandwiches before we run out of bread. So with 10 slices of bread and 10 slices of cheese, we can make 5 sandwiches. There are 5 slices of cheese left over. So this would be our reactant in excess, the one we have extra of. But all of the bread is used up, so bread is our limiting reactant. So if we look, we could have made 10 sandwiches with 10 slices of cheese, but we only end up with 5 sandwiches because we use up all of the bread. Let's do an actual chemistry example. What mass of HCl is produced when 4.5 grams of H2 and 1.40 times 10 to the power of 2 grams of Cl2 are reacted? How much of the reactant in excess is left after the reaction? So it's asking us for a couple of things here, but we're going to start the way we usually do. Write and balance the equation and look at what they're giving us. So we have 4.5 grams of H2 and 1.40 times 10 to the power of 2 grams of Cl2. And our first question is how much HCl is produced. So what we need to figure out is how many sandwiches can we make. So we need to look at how much HCl can be made with each of those reactants. So we're going to find the limiting reactant and the reactant in excess by calculating the theoretical yield of HCl with each reactant. So how much can we make with just the H2 and how much can we make with the Cl2? When we finish the calculations, we find that we can make 1.6 times 10 to the power of 2 grams of HCl with the amount of H2 that we're starting with. And we can make 1.44 times 10 to the power of 2 grams of HCl with the amount of Cl2 that we're starting with. So the theoretical yield of HCl is the smaller of those two answers. That's the amount that will be produced because we run out of Cl2. So if we run out of Cl2 first, that means that Cl2 is our limiting reactant. We have some H2 left over after the Cl2 is used up, so H2 is our reactant in excess. So if we look back at the question, it asked what mass of HCl is produced. So we look at our two yields, we pick the smaller number, and that answers the first part of the question. The second part of the question is asking how much of the reactant in excess is left after the reaction. So remember, the reactant in excess is the H2. So we're trying to figure out how much H2 is left after the reaction. We need to remember that the reaction made 1.44 times 10 to the power of 2 grams of HCl. So that's how much is going to be produced. So we need to work backwards now and do a mass-mass calculation from HCl to H2 to figure out how much H2 gets used up to make the HCl. So we are starting with the 1.44 times 10 to the power of 2 grams of HCl, and that's what we write down, but we need to remember to use the unrounded number from our previous calculation to avoid round-off error. So we're starting with the mass of HCl. We're going to use their molar masses and the mole ratio to figure out the mass of H2. So we get 3.94 grams of H2 as the amount that's used up in the reaction. So to figure out how much is left over, we start with what we started with, 4.5 grams, and we subtract the amount that gets used up, the 3.94 grams. Again, we're writing the rounded number, 3.94, but we're going to use the unrounded number in our calculation. We have to pay attention to sig figs here. We're subtracting, so we're looking at decimal places. 4.5 has 1, 3.94 has 2, so our answer gets 1, and we round to 0.6 grams of H2. So that's how much is left over after the reaction. Here's a problem for you to try. Please pause the video, try it, and resume to check your answers.